Good afternoon, everybody. Dear respected all scholars, most welcome for our सह्याद्री बहुजन विद्याप्रसारक समाजाच सहकार महर्षी भाऊसाहेब संतोजी थोरात कॉलेज ऑफ आर्ट सायन्स अँड कॉमर्स संगमनेर IQSA and Department of History with collaboration of Heritage Foundation Jalgaon organize a faculty development program. This will be our last session. Today, Chief of Guests, first session, Dr. Anand Mujumdar, Faculty of Education, University of Alberta, Canada, and second session, Dr. Shreyashi Rai Chaudhary, Assistant Department of History, Mahitosh Nandya Mahavidyalaya, and guest lecturer, Department of Archaeology, University of Calcutta. I request to Honorable Principal Dr. D.D. Patil sir introduce our chief guest, Dr. Anand Mujumdar. Thank you, sir. Sir, please, mic on.
Hello friends, good afternoon everybody. I am Dinanath Patil, Principal, SMBST College. I take this opportunity to introduce today's speaker, Honorable guest, Honorable Anand Mujumdar sir from University of Alberta, Faculty of Education, Undergraduate International Relations. He has completed MA, MBA, HRM, Human Resource Management from MBB College, Tripura. His education he pursued from Jadavpur University, Sikkim Manipal University, Grant McEwan University, Northwest College. He is associated with Harvard Graduate School of Education for professional education online student as early childhood educator in Alberta, Canada, and taking PD courses like bilingualism, early educator training and development. Also, Open University online free courses for professional development as online early childhood distance education importance, literacy and international affairs, child crisis, introduction of distance learning. These are the areas of his work at UK and Ireland, Beskoff Online Learning Center. Also, the areas of his interests for research are social science, early education, humanities, religion, and astronomy, professional development and professional volunteerism work he is associated with. As a researcher, he is engaged in article writing at Antarctic Institute of Canada, and he has to his credit articles on India-Canada relations. Also, he is instrumental in the writings of History of Today, Social Development, and Humanities, and Social Sciences. I thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity to introduce Honorable Mujumdar sir. I also take this opportunity to request Honorable Mujumdar sir to visit this place whenever you happen to come to India, sir. Please, I have a standing request for you. We will be greatly honored by your visit to my place. I request at this August gathering to you to deliberate your ideas, to share your knowledge with all our scholar fellows. Thank you.
So, thank you so much. Can I start now?
Please, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dinanath Patil, sir. And thank you all who are here. I'm so happy to be privileged by you. And I'm an Indian, but now since 14, 15 years, I live in Canada, Alberta. So can you hear me, please?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much. So yeah, so I have it is kind of a background, and still I'm studying in Alberta, Canada. And so now today I will present my topic, and I'm very happy. I'm so excited to be invited for the presentations program. Are you listening to that? Are you watching this one? Is my PowerPoint visible?
It's not yet.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. It is visible, sir.
Is it visible?
Is it visible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much. So this is the topic of mine, like the archaeological teaching and the social relevance, a connection. So here my background, and I don't think so I have to say again about me something like that. So this is the content I would like to express. The definition of archaeology, the anthropology, heritage, museum, structuring principles, thematic approach, connection to the present, social relevance, pedagogical methods, summarizations, conclusions, and references. I shall try my best to illustrate everything because of the time. So it's very good for me that I have given a time, received the time. So first of all, the keywords, which is also we say the tags of my entire topic, is the heritage, the museum, anthropology, excavation, web as a learning platform, past and the present, social relevance. And when you will see all the pictures, these pictures are all associated with that topic. So if you see that the archaeology of the social organizations, it is very important that how we behave and how we interact with each other in our society, and how the society in the past also behaved with those people, and how the society of the past are now related with our present society. Is there any kind of a similarity, or is any opposite things have you seen like that? So this is very important discussions when we talk about the archaeology in the context of social organizations. The literature review. So this is the museum at Drumheller, Alberta, Canada, because Drumheller is a place in Alberta where the dinosaur found long time ago. They were there. So this is one of our famous Canadian museum, which is called Royal Terril Museum in Alberta, Canada. The literature review is that this content of the paper is to understand the past and its relevance with the present. I have also put everything here because so that it will be easy for everybody here to understand and to look at what I have written down and everything because of the accent. Some people maybe can understand my accent, or some people can't understand my accent. So this is why I have delivered have provided the writings specifically. The content of the paper is to understand the past and its relevance with the present. This is how the archaeological studies are. It has also explained to understand the humanity for the better understanding of human civilizations from the past to the present. Social relevance has been characterized by the learning and understanding of civilizations and societies from the ancient times and its materialistic similarities with current societies. The outcome of the paper is to understand the past, present socially, politically, culturally, environmentally, and economically. The problem is the students have sometimes difficulties to connect the ancient stories with the present due to the traditional model of the courses, and they're impatient as well. Therefore, various systems of learning such as the online module has been created to make archaeology as the creative course for students. So this is, very simple. Archaeology and anthropology, these are nowadays, I don't know about the Indian scenario, but in Canada, it's an interdisciplinary course under Department of Arts faculty. And when I go through the Beard's track record, we see that the rate of the students of those faculties, like especially those subjects, are not that much high. And who really take these courses, they are taking these courses because of the general education requirement or maybe to get a better grade. Otherwise, they don't have any really interest to take that course like as their major course or something like that. So this is one of the problem and challenge nowadays in these courses and all. And what happened then, the University of Alberta is thinking about those courses who are not that highly demanded, or drop those courses the semester wise. So this is one of the challenges that we have faced in this scenario. The methodology. The paper has been assumed through the subordinate sources of data. Subordinate sources of data include the academic articles, website, etc. The methodology to write the paper has been taken by the description of sources, by reading, gathering in-depth insights on topics, focuses on exploring ideas, summarizing and interpreting, and mainly expressed in words, which is a documentary analysis through qualitative approach. So that means I have not gone through any interview with any people, or I have not taken really very much the numerical data for the analysis of this paper. So basically, I have gone through the written document through various sources, especially the sources. One of the sources from the University of Florida, the United States, about the archaeological department. So this is my main sources that I have written the most. So this is the ideology. And if you see the picture, this picture is a heritage of the United Kingdom. So you will see this is the veil and the shape of the buildings and the roof. So this is their old heritage of the United Kingdom. And if you go to the Eastern Europe, because of my various presentations and conferences, I have gone through Eastern, like Europe, like I have gone through the Romania and especially Bulgaria and Romania, those traditional Eastern European countries, Moldova Republic. So I have seen especially those houses, especially in Hungary, in Central Europe, and still they preserve those houses very much. And this is kind of the weather they have, and they think this is one of their best heritage sites, especially if you go to Austria, Hungary, Romania, and Bulgaria on those parts. Because development is not that high in those Eastern European countries, and as a result, the beautification of the nature is still available in those countries, especially if you go to some part of these countries in Europe. Now, I shall start some definitions. So this is a very simple presentation of mine, and I hope it will be very easy to understand everybody. And so step by step, I have taken the approach, and so very easy, and then little bit, the analysis of the document. So hope you will enjoy my presentation. So now the definition about the archaeology. What is archaeology? The archaeology is the study of the ancient and recent human past through the material remains. The archaeologist might study the million years old fossils of our earliest human ancestors in Africa, or they might study 20th century's building in present day New York City. So it could be anything. It could be a present day scenario. It could be in the past days. And this is why I say the amalgamation between the past and present of archaeology. The archaeology analyzes the physical remains of the past in pursuit of a broad and comprehensive understanding of human culture. If you go to Arctic region of Canada, the northern Canadian Arctic region, long time ago, when the technology was not that modern, the Canadian ship went to Europe through this Arctic region, and Arctic is a completely covered by snow. And like many times, the ships lost, and the sailors, they died. But what happened then nowadays, when the archaeologist goes to those regions, and they found the grave of the area, a long area that spread the grave, and they found the dead body of those sailors are still very like fresh because of the deep snow. So this is one of the archaeological survey that the Canadian scientists have done in those areas, like in the Arctic Canadian region. And then they have find out their past materials and sources, and they have tried themselves with the connection of the present day's scenario. That means how the technology was in those times, and how the technology, because still the Canadian ships and Russian ships and other ships, they are going to Europe through this Arctic region. But the thing is that nowadays the ships has a blade underneath, and therefore it was easy for them to cut those deep snow or something like that, but it was not before. So that is the differences, and that is also the explorations that how through the evolutionary process, the ships has been changes from the new to newer. So this is one of the fundamental things they find out through the exploration of Arctic region of Canada. Now the definition of anthropology. The anthropology is the systemic study of humanity with the goal of understanding our evolutionary origins, our distinctiveness as a species, and the great diversity in our forms of social existence across the world and through time. The focus of anthropology is on understanding both our shared humanity and diversity, and engaging with the diverse ways of being in the world. So it's a similar phrases and similar words that we have seen, the diversity, humanity, differentiating similarities, and excavations. Various terms have been used both in anthropology, both in archaeological studies, in museum studies, in heritage studies. And therefore, because of those similarities of the words and terms, they are all amalgamated each other. So we can say that the archaeology is a part of the anthropology. If you observe the picture, you can see the archaeological site of Pompeii, Italy. So you know that the Pompeii, Italy is one of the best examples in the world for archaeological survey for a long time. Though I didn't go there, but I have also ambitions to go to the Pompeii, Italy in the future. Now about heritage. This picture is also from the United Kingdom, and they are very traditional to preserve their old buildings and their surroundings. So this is why I think that Europe is one of the beautiful continent in the world, because almost all the countries of Europe, it doesn't mean that who is poor or the rich, they're almost all try their best to preserve their old traditions through the beautifications of many, many things. It doesn't matter whether it is Eastern Europe or Northern Europe or Western Europe or Central Europe. Now, the heritage is the full range of our inherited tradition, monuments, objects, and culture. The most important, it is the range of contemporary activities, meanings, and behaviors that we draw from them. Heritage includes, but is much more than preserving, excavating, displaying, or restoring a collection of old things. It is both tangibles and intangibles, in the sense that the ideas and memories of songs, recipes, language, dances, and many other elements of who we are and how we identify ourselves are as important as historical buildings and archaeological sites. So again, it is whatever it is saying, it is the same thing is saying by the archaeology, same thing is saying by other the part of the subject like the museum studies. I have an article about the Eco Museum I presented at the University of Leeds in the United Kingdom, the Department of Chemical Engineering. So in that article, I focused on traditional museum, like how the traditional communities of every country preserving their culture and preserving their areas that they are living. So therefore, the Eco Museum is not like the museum within the wall, but the museum without the wall, because of the heritage preservations of each and every traditional families. In Asia, fortunately, the China is one of the largest country that they have preserved the traditional community long time ago, focusing the North American and European tradition. And India is also following nowadays. It's not that far like China, but India now start to follow to preserve the Indian traditional like tribal peoples preservations in those areas through the Eco Museum. That means the relations between ecology and museums. So this is again at Drumheller in Alberta, Canada. It's a museum. So the definition of museum, the museum as an institution, tell the story of the man of the world over and how humanity has survived in its environment over the years. It houses things created by nature and by men, and in our modern society, it houses the cultural soul of the nation. It holds the cultural wealth of the nation in trust for all generations, and by its functions and unique positions, it has become the cultural conscience of the nations. I already say one of the examples like Eco Museum, how the museum is preserving the traditions and traditional communities in all over the world. So museum is not like only the inside the wall, it is also the outside the wall. So if you think that you can make a museum, you can make a museum in your house. If you think that you can think the world is a museum, you can think. So it is up to you that in what perspective that you are thinking and you are observing the sites and the areas and the region as a museum that has a link to the heritage and that has a link to the archaeology. So these are the basic samples and the basic definitions of each and every terms that I have just provided. Now I will little bit start about the structuring principles of archaeology. So this from now I am gonna little bit analyze my topic, but I hope it will be also easy for you all to understand. If you don't understand during the question hour, you can tell me, please and thank you. This picture is a picture of Canadian Aboriginal people. I hope that you all know the history of the residential school in Canadian Aboriginal history, which is also a part of the heritage of Canada. And so long time ago, they came to Canada, and Canada is their original country. Not actually the Europeans, the Canada is their original country, but the Aboriginal people, they are the original, the Canada is their original country. And they live in Saskatchewan. The Saskatchewan is Western province of Canada. So whatever you have seen, the area, it is a part of Saskatchewan in Canada, the prairie area, which is in Western Canada. So the structuring principles, how we can start to archaeological study. So whatever right now I am presenting here, this is an introduction to archaeology. So the introduction to archaeology, like what should the structural principles? What is the principles? The fresh college students who enroll in archaeology classes are generally interested through the excitement and have little knowledge about the past. They are interested to know about the past and try to understand its relevance with the present. Simple and very simple, that they just come as a fresh student, being an interesting guy to know about what is called anthropology, what is called archaeology, because they already know through the National Geographic and other TVs that what is happening all over the world, and what the archaeologists and scientists are doing through like digging their soil and something like this, so which is very exciting and interesting. And in this interest, they come to the universities and colleges, and that they take as a course, whether it is a general education requirements or it is to get a grader, the best grader, like good grade. It is encouragement through anthropological studies to know the past and the present scenarios of global heritage and humanities that helps humans to adapt to their world. According to Little and Shackle, the study of heritage is the way to know the past and its influence on the public good. They say the raising consciousness about the past and connecting it to the present. So these are some quotation by the great archaeologists in the United States and some other countries. So they try to relate the past and the present, which is the main focus of my topic. So archaeology also helps for empowerment to know the world of heritage and its glories through a socially stimulated legacy, which is heritage. So, I have put some simple word here. Sometimes maybe you can say what is called stimulated legacy, which is heritage. So this is the simple things that I have put, so it'll be easy to understand. So as an introductory course of archaeology, the concept of heritage has been used through narratives or themes, like events, activities, reflections, for overall encouragement over the subject of heritage and culture. It is not an easy process to involve and engage among the students about the various historical data, but the process has been found through a combination of regions and themes, and thus connects the ancient cultures and concept from the past to the present. And it is easier because as a fresh student without any experience, it is very, especially when you go to laboratory work, it is very difficult to find out what is the archaeological sites and something like that. I had a course in soil science, so the lecture was very nice for me, but when I go to the lab sections to experiment the soil and the layers of the soil, it was very difficult for me to find out those materials, which are the true materials and which are the false materials. So definitely the lab section is one of the difficult to find out those archaeological materials. And those materials, you have to be really careful, not broken or something like that. Like suppose if you find out some skeleton of dinosaur, because I have seen at the University of Alberta in science laboratory section that the scientists are very, very carefully brushing the the bodies of the fossils of the dinosaurs, something like that, but very carefully, because then if it is broke, then it doesn't work for that. So this is very, if you think it is difficult, then it is really difficult. So you have to be very careful for that. So this is how they're telling like that. So the pedagogy and practice in heritage, and the teaching archaeology and social relevance, structure and principles. So these are some the realities that we have found in the archaeological studies when you go to lab sections and when we are a fresh student without any experience, or maybe a little experiment that we have. So this is the structural principles. Now the thematic approach. We know that what is the thematic approach. That means the thematic approach means the collaborations of various connections, and then find out the best results. Again, they are the Aboriginal society in Canada, and this is the Arctic region of Canada, where always the snow, and this is their heritage that they are living over there, and they can't leave other part of Canada because of their hobby, and they're used to it for this kind of weather, like 12 months a year. The power and leadership. So what are the approaches of thematic areas like power and leaderships? The design of the learning process has sorts of questions to encourage students and to think about the educational scenario, that why they are studying the details of ethos. So ethos, what is ethos? Ethos means culture, art, literature, and museum. So why they're studying the details of ethos? The set of questions explores the details of the courses to know the traditional kingship, kingdom, leadership, Samaritan, and the good civilizations. Now the question is based on power and leaderships. What are the characteristics that make a good king? So when, this is also a study, like archaeological study, when you go through an experiment and to go through our articles or analysis or research for anything, we face various type of questions. And this is also a part of the questions. So these are the questions like what are the characteristics that makes the good king? A strong kingdom across the civilizations. So what are the characteristics of a good leader in a society? Is a leader always political power? And do people really need a political representative to maintain a civil society? Now, I have another article. It's just called the Democracy and Civilizations, and according to John Dewey, I hope you know the educationist and philosopher, Dr. John Dewey of the United States. So he was also writing something like that. Do we really need the political democracy or politicalizations? So this is a part of this things, that do people really need a political representative to maintain a civil society? So they want freedom, really. So these are the questions in theme of power and leaderships. So when you read something like power and leadership, so you will face these kind of questions, and then you have to prepare for those kind of questions by research. Now about trade. In trade and economics, questions have been raised that why the commercial deal is important. What are the positive and negative sides of the trade and trade deals? What and how are those conflicts connected to trade, economics, and resources? And this is the usual, because when you go through something monetary resources, then definitely you have to understand and think about the commercial sectors of every areas. And the commercial interest was not for our present days. It was also, the commercial sectors was very important also in the past time as well. I will go through, and you will listen how it was interested in the past time as well. continues the thematic approaches. So this is archaeology of the, if you heard about the Norse mythology in Iceland, so they are the Norse lord, they are the Norse god, because in Christianity they admire the Norse community very, very well. And I had a course also in Norse at the University of Alberta. So they are the Norse lord. There are the various type of lords, and they are the Norse lords. And Odin was their leader of the lord. And this is the sample of the archaeological stuff of the Norse mythology. Basically in Greenland and in Iceland and in North America. So the continuing the thematic approaches, the religions and ideology. So these are all those areas that if you go through the research, you will find out those questions. I say the question, the set of question is one of the important points of archaeological studies. So in the theme of religions and ideology, the questions arise like, how does religions define the society? Is there any role of religions that affects the influence of politics and leadership in society? Is there any conflict between religions and politics? Yes, of course. If you go through the European continent, the medieval Europe was always conflict between religion and politics. If you go through, if you read about the Western reformations, which I have also an article, you will see the differences between the Protestant Christianity and Catholic Christianity. So the Protestant Christians always for the Renaissance, for the revolutions, for the modifications of all traditional stuffs, like whatever the church was based, that the church is the representative of the God, but they say no, they are not the representative of the God. So that was the conflict between those religious churches. Now, how about the politics? If you go to the 6th George of the United Kingdom, he has also a conflict with the church because he thought the church is actually getting all the powers, and one day there will be no power of the church, like of the dynasties. So therefore, always we have seen in European war history there was a conflict between the dynasties and the religions. So in this source here we can also say that, is there any conflict between the religions and politics? Yes, it is, it was, and still it is. It was before because there was no law or evidence, so it was visible. But nowadays, because of the judiciary systems and laws, it was indirectly, it was not that visible, but it is still exist in every countries. The social organizations and social stress. In the theme of social organizations and social stress, questions have been raised like, the what are social organizations? How are their reflections on society? And how does it affect power and leaderships? How does it change the gathering of society? Why do social organizations change? What are stakeholders for the changes of social organizations? As a society, as a community, we influenced by the political leaderships, or we can say the policy makers. And similarly, they also influenced by the citizens, which is a community. So this is somehow the answer of these questions, the reflection of the society, because without a society and community, we can't make a nation state. So therefore, nation state, which is the policymakers and the citizen, loyal citizen, whatever you can say, or the respect or responsible citizen. So responsible citizen and the nation state, like policymakers, they are all combined each others, and they respect each other because they follow each other. Right? So the continuous of the thematic approach. These are the all points. Like now in the context of the art, architecture, literacy, and the control of informations. In the theme of art, architecture, literacy, and the control of informations, questions have been raised that what are the social informations? How does the control and conversation of informations affect the societies and civilizations? Who can access media and informations? Can art and architecture be considered as informations? If they're informations, then how do they broadcast in societies and precise the thoughts and beliefs of people? Now, suppose if you go to start your research in archaeology in any of those areas, like if you start your research in archaeology, like art, architecture, literacy, and control of the information, so you have to face those questions. And then you have to prepare those questions, because I say the questions is most important in archaeological studies, especially the introductory to archaeological studies. Now, the answer, I would say, that who can access media and information? Definitely, we people can access the media and informations in the informational age, or we can say the modern age. And this is one of our medium to communicate each other. And this is how the globalization is. People connected to the environment. So now this is the relations between people and environment. I have another article about eco environment that I have written for the University of Pennsylvania. Human ecology, sorry. So my article name is Human Ecology. So in this article I have written, because in general terms, human ecology means something ecology of the United Kingdoms and European continent during the colonizations, when the Europeans migrated and settled some other countries in the world. They also brought diseases through the environment. But the human ecology is completely different. It is not like telling about the colonizations of disease or something like that. It was something, a development through ecology, like how the human can be developed through the improvement of ecological system. So this is how the human ecology, for the promotion of the human development and for the promotion of the human being, not really discussed about the colonizations and the diseases of Europe to other part of the world. So this is something also here, that people connected to the environment. The question raised, like how society related with the environment, how does society's system affect the environment, and the relevance of the archaeology in the world heritage is important because of its insight collections into the system of cultural heritage without the source of the archaeology. It is exceedingly difficult to teach a class on world prehistory. It is because if you discussed in a class about the world prehistory, like world prehistory is a broad sense. It's not like a similar sense. So how, from where are you going to start and from where are you going to end? And students nowadays are not that patient to listen to you for 40 minutes or something like that. Therefore, it is truly relevant and useful to know about the contribution of archaeological for the understanding of the past. Now, there is an example I will say. The Indiana Jones is one of the best examples in North American scenario, where archaeologists would like to know about the past as well as the presence of the actual image of the Indiana Jones. This is one of the methods called exhibition, through which the insight can bring back to explore the operations of the culture. How did the culture operate? Therefore, it is a study or inspection through several questions for the exploration of new insights by the archaeologist. So if you see this picture, this is a miracle of the Indiana Jones, and a great series of the Hollywood movies about the to find out all those mysterious things and stories. So this is the points of the thematic approaches of the archaeological studies that the students needs to understand whenever they will take those areas for research. So they have to find out those questions and they have to face those questions for research and for analysis. Now, connecting to the present from the past. So therefore, it is a study or inspections through the several questions for the exploration of new insights by the archaeologist. This is a concept of the introductory course of archaeology, through which students can be learned that archaeologists explore new insights through various inspections. explorations of all answers to questions, and excavations. The scholars Renfrew and Vance has exercised archaeology through the history of humanity, through which the human have been communicated with the world by the explorations of materials. So materials is one of the important narratives of archaeological studies. So that we have seen the questions and materials are those narratives of the archaeological studies. So whenever we will study about the archaeology, or we will go through to get some archaeological concept, then definitely we have to face, or we have to know about the materials and those questions. Therefore, it has been expressed by the scholars, instructors, that the archaeology attempts to precise human performance, conduct, or behavior. Now, what is the human performance? The human behavior or human conduct. By looking, exploring the materialism, the past, for the intention of understanding humankind, and cunning means craft, it at present at the same time. So it is an observation. If you see those pictures, this is a podcast by someone, and this is something observations of the past things. So we can observe, we can communicate each other. So by the observations, we can explore many things. So this is how the materialism works for the past to the present. So this is how we connect our past with the present. Now the social relevance, which is very important in archaeological studies, and one of my topic, the main topic, is the connections of the social relevance, like the society. What is mean social relevance? Social relevance means the definition of society from the past to the present, like civilizations. I hope we all know about the Indus civilizations of India and the Chinese civilization of China. So those great civilizations studies is actually a social relevance, like the society. The introductory archaeological studies also focus on social relevance, which is the social issues of the past, which is relevant in the present civilization. The study of social relevance is another content for the students of introductory archaeology to realize the civilizations of the past and their connections to the current society. According to Brian Murray Fargone, the professor of anthropology at the University of California, Santa Barbara, archaeology is the only reliable subject through which it can be explored how the human civilization changed and remained the same for a long period, which also allows the tracing the origin of the modern human society. Therefore, it is also important to teach the student about the Fargone theory, about how archaeological research allows the archaeologists to find out the harmonies of differences in why and how the civilizations and cultures change through an evolutionary process, and then how it relates to today's social and artistic heritage. So he is one of the great archaeologists in the United States, perhaps in the world. So his theory is called the Fargone Theory, and he said that there is something like correlations with the harmonies and differences in why and how civilizations and cultures change through an evolutionary process. Of course, it's changed the evolutionary process because from the ancient to the present day scenario, the human civilizations has changed. Our cooking systems, if I say very simply that our cooking system, that our behavior, that our utensils, everything has been changed. And like, suppose we don't use any stone anymore, we don't use fire, or the putting the natural fire, something like that. So it is now a more modified approaches of the fire, like gasoline and something like that. So this is an evolutionary process from the past to the present that we are doing it. So if you see those pictures, these are the pictures, the reflection of the society. Something about the name. So the name, these are the the terms in society, like the community, the names, and these the positions, social strata. These are the reflections and the examples of the society that you can see. Now we're going to start about the pedagogical methods. This is something, a picture of Nimrud of, you know, that the ISIS, the terrorist organization, they destroyed entirely those archaeological area. So this is the picture of the Nimrud, one of the best archaeological sites in the country. And this is the picture of the Norse community, because you know that the Norse people, their main transportation was ship and boat, and they explore the Greenland and Iceland and the North America from Europe. So if you say the pedagogical methods, we're going to first start about the current event method. The students provide any current archaeological event. During the presentations, discussions arises about the archaeological relevancy on the topic. How does the archaeological research manage? Any ethical thoughts? How does current research is related to the past informations? This is how the illustration sparks students to know in depth and more about the research. Sometimes discussions about the law gets interested among students. What are the laws in different countries to protect the archaeological sites? So this is something, the questions that arises again. Heritage and so what are the laws and rules in each and every countries that protect the reserve site of their places? So one of the examples is the demolition of Nimrud archaeological sites by ISIS. I just show you. Therefore, a discussion has raised that how religion, war, and conflicts are interconnected for a long period. So if you see that the religions, war, and conflict are all the terms of, you can say, of sociology, you can say political science. So these are all a social science. So that means archaeology and anthropology, they are also a part of all the courses in social sciences. We cannot say that each and every courses are different. They have some relations and connection with each and every different courses of the arts and linguistics. So when you go through the study of the archaeology, or when you made some curriculum for a college, for a new archaeological sections, that you can focus on those terms like religions, war, and conflicts. And these are all connected when somebody demolishes those archaeological sites like that, or the destructions of those boats and stuff. This is not demolition, this is destruction of the boat of the Norse mythology, but this is the destructions. So this is how automatically the religions, war, and conflicts are interconnected for a long period. In archaeological discussions in the classroom, in the context of National Geographic documentary video, the discussion has raised on the relationship between the history of humanity and a heritage site like Nimrud. And the question was how a losing place is interconnected with the history of humanity. It is, of course, because the history of humanity, Nimrud was once upon a time, it was a very developed area, like in the Indus civilizations, and we had humanities in that time, and this is how the history of humanity created, and we find out those history of humanities. But the thing is that when we go through research and study about the archaeology, that we have to find out in a different shape, in a different way, in different kind of questions, that how and why those questions arises, and how we can build more and more concrete answer of the questions. Because we know that in social science, nothing is abstract, so it will be modified, it will be, the evolutionary process will be continued. So these are the features of current events reporting as a method of classroom learning. So whatever from the beginning to now I have said, this is something about to make some curriculum of the introductory archaeological course. So when anybody wants to make some new curriculum or new lesson plan for the introductory archaeology, it is make sure that they go through those questions, points, and pedagogical method, and teach those students in the classroom each and every scenarios of those questions and the points under a curriculum topic, or making a curriculum. So these are the features of the current events reporting as a method of a classroom learning, along with the combination of in-class knowledge and hands-on activities with relevant sources. This is also called the applied research for a student. I did a class called Community Service Learning. I'm certified about this course. Like it's one of the certified certificate of the University of Alberta, which is called Community Service Learning. So this instruction and curriculum of this course is in-class knowledge plus hands-on activities. So you have to take the class at the U of A, and then you have to go to some places at the city of Edmonton to serve the people. Suppose the people of immigrant society. So what you have gained experience from the immigrant society, you have to come back to the class, and then you have to share to your classroom peers. Because whatever you are doing a research, you are doing particularly as a group, so that you have to share your all experience from outside to the inside into your group. So this is somehow the hands-on experience or applied research occurs. And I would say this is one of the most relevant approach in archaeological studies for its promotional development. Because always in class, like traditional teaching, like in class teaching without doing any problematic theories or thinking-based stuff, or without any database informations, it doesn't really work for the promotion. But when those things comes out, like a applied research, like a thinking and many things, that it works. Then it gets a very interesting course with various sources of the academic learning and various ways of academic learnings, not only in the classroom presentations. Continuing to the pedagogical method. So this is the picture. You will see this guy. I don't know who is he, maybe a tourist or something like that. He is constantly destroying the places of Nimrud. So this is the after the destructions, and that was the before the destructions. So the second point of the pedagogical method is a case study. A case study is another effective method during archaeological studies. The archaeology is anthropology, therefore studying anthropology is about the past and present histories, informations of humanity at large. The case study can be conducted by the research of the Stone Age as an example. Then how the resources of the Stone Age materials are related to the current material of civilizations. It can be conducted by the understanding of the Stone Age's time and space. How did the changes happen from that period to the current period of humanities, or from that period to the present? How does human cultures operate? Various examples are available to understand the current issues that have relations with the past. Now, I would say an example like Easter Island is an example as a case study where human impact on the environment has been analyzed, and this is clearly connected with the present day's climate change. So look, the climate change nowadays is one of the big issues, but these issues, it's not like our present issues, it was issues from the past as well. And Easter Island is an example. Archaeologists Paul Ban and John Friendly has proposed a case study on deforestation and its impact on civilization. This case study was favoring ecological advantages over human beings. Therefore, they were asking about the human ecology, which can be activated for the development of humanity society instead of environmental degradations. So therefore, we'll see how the past can be related with the present. A scenario. The scenarios say that deforestations and was not a problem for our time like a present days. It was a problem from the past. Like if you see in the Norse community, their main profession was to making a boat and to explore the islands. So they make the boat by wood, and they cut the forest, destroy the forest of those areas. So that was the problem of the deforestation from the past, which is also connected our problem right now, the today's problem of the deforestations. So those issues are not issues of the present time. This is from the past time that we have seen, and this is how it has been connected from the past to the present. So climate change is not a new thing. It's a very old thing. So this is one of the points that we have studied, the case studies, and then current event method. I have many more points, but it's not possible to say everything here. But I just put three, I think three here, or maybe a little bit more. Now, as a technological advancement, as a pedagogical method, you will see this picture is a picture of the Constantinople, the present Turkey. Because we know that the civilizations, the Constantinople was one of the great civilizations in Europe. We know that very well about the Ottoman Empire. And I have several articles and presented various presentations in Turkey, the universities. And I'm also writing a new article about the Ottoman system very soon for a presentation at the Turkish University. Now, the technological advancement as a point of the pedagogical method, it has been possible to offer the students the various learning tools. So what is it? It is a web development. Like suppose I am now presenting you from Canada through online. See how developed our technology is nowadays. So this is called technological advancement. It was not possible in the past time, like to say, even I think in 1990s, it was not that possible to speak from America to all over the world, or from all over the world to the America. So this is really a miracle of the technological advancement. And also it has been miracle for the studies of archaeology, because we know that the archaeology is a study that we always search, excavate, and experiment. And technological advancement through the medium, through the internet, through online, we get easily instead of going the professional side sometime. So it has been possible to offer students various learning tools instead of taking tests and memorizing exercises. So again, it's not anymore a traditional classroom. The writing and critical thinking have been increased for the studies of their archaeology. Face-to-face and online modules of the learning processes. Web pages of the contents have been developed highly. Visualizations, interactions, involvement, and implications of the processes of the studies materials were highly developed. E-books have been developed for more access by the students to know more electronically. So, nowadays when you are a student in a college or something like that, you have an account in a library. So go to the library and find out the e-books instead of searching the books in a library catalog or something like that. So you can simply go to the library and library computer or account and find out some e-book by researching like as a full text or something like that. So you will get a lot of books. It's easy. You can do anything from your house instead of going to the library catalog and find out, which is take a lot of time. Now here I will express another example. During the Angkor Wat project, we all know the Angkor Wat civilizations of Cambodia. Web areas of the Khmer civilizations has been provided to the students for more explorations of the community, where the visual documents, video clips, important facts were the materials as resources. Students have been asked to use those materials to know the temple, its structure, reconstruct the meaning of the temple, and research. It has been also asked students and that so what they learn, which can be collaborated with the present and what are those modern colorists. So another web page has been created about the agricultural consequences over society in the past. A quick question has been set up during the entire analysis on the agricultural revolutions. It is fabulously visual with a concise text from which the students can choose their own article, which is agriculture related. Pedagogy and practice in heritage studies. So this is something like that. If you are starting a research on Angkor Wat temple or a Khmer civilizations of Cambodia, you can simply go to the web page or a website or an ebook, you can find out. And there are a lot of sources. So it's not like any more that you have to go through several books, hard books, and find out and go through again to the library and then come back, which is also timing stuff. So research and analysis nowadays are very, very helpful. Now, I think from the beginning I say the documentary analysis. When I write this topic, I go through a documentary analysis, means I go through the university in account through my computer. I open my name and I open my account and I go through ebooks of the university. I find out several books from the University of Florida, the Cambridge University Press, because each and every universities are interrelated to each and every university. So this is how I finished my topic, which is more easier because nowadays COVID and university is closed and you cannot go to university library to find out the books. So this is how they are saying about the technological advancement. So it doesn't matter whatever civilizations you are taking as your project for analysis or studies as a part of your archaeological study, you can search through any mediums through computer. One of the method I would say, the Charcoal Research Archive is a collaborative effort to create an online archive and analytical database that integrates much of the widely disparate archaeological data collected from Chaco Canyon from the late 1890s through the first half of the 20th century. In the context of pedagogy, the technique has given an opportunity to students to use an online database for deep research applications and find out the solutions. Steve Logg at the University of Virginia was the explorer of Chaco Digital Archive. So this is the website. So if you go through this website, you can see various history of exploration and research, missions and everything. So you can find out various stuff here, like about the archive and explorations of database, because you know the informations and data are very important for our research. So you can go through the database and archive through this Chaco Research Archive. Okay. So this is one of the points that I have said in the Chaco Research Archive. If you want to write down, you can write down and you can go through this research if you would like to find out something like that. So continuing to the pedagogical method, the project-based learning is another narrative for your research and development. So it is another important step for the research studies in archaeology. Throughout the year, students will meet with various people, sources, collect information as a group work on a particular article they select for project work. Their work must relate to the course content they learn throughout the course. So these are some features of your research. It's not like that we go for a research and do whatever we like. No, it has to be related to our course content, that whatever we are studying in class, and then we go outside for our applied research. At the end of the term, they will show their research results by using the archaeological data and sites. In this final process, students as a group will meet the instructor along with information, new thinking, data resources, and find out the thematic questions of the article project. I already discussed about those thematic questions before. So again, they will find out some thematic question as a part of archaeological studies. They will become an independent thinker of their work along with the study of their course content. Students' learning through online modules have been increased, but the challenge is to provide them project-based learning. So online learning is one of the most developed approach or processes for the increasement and faster way for the archaeological study, but it's not like everything. You know, there is something limitation that we can't provide them, like a project-based learning. Sometimes it's a challenge for them to do so. But because of the growing online learning demand, it is an important fact that how to learn within an engaging and interactive environment. So the question is, do you think through online studies, can you involve with other students? Like classrooms. In the classroom, we make a group, we discussed, and we find out the solution right away. But do you think, is it possible in online section? Sometimes it's possible because we then go through a group discussions by making a seminars of stuff like that, right? The online seminars, because nowadays at the University of Alberta, our curriculum is not only the lectures, we have also added something as seminars called student engagement. So online student engagement, there will be some questions. You will answer those questions through the discussions under the seminar sections. Plus, you have a lecture section. So this is the two types. So this is here they are saying that the learning process has been developed by adding the content of the past and its relations with the present, which has problem-based learning. So this is how they are saying that is the online modules is the appropriate. Yes, it is, but the thing is that if you would like to make some appropriate curriculum like a lecture sections and the seminar section for your group meeting or engagement for a question, then I hope it will be the solution of the problem. But if you only make a lecture sections without any seminar section, then it would be difficult to meeting the students online because you're not doing something in the classroom. However, the Joe Kesu is another archaeologist. He stated that when students think critically, they think deeply. They not only know the facts, but they take the additional steps of going beyond the facts to do something with them. The critical thinking involves reflecting on the information received, moving away from the surface memorizations and towards deeper levels of learning. So therefore, you have to be critical thinker. This is one of the features of archaeological studies. Through a creativeness, we can do a lot of things. It's not like that we are just reading and we are writing. We are reading, we are thinking, and we are making it our own. And it could be one of the best answer of any kind of definitions. Now, I will summarize from the beginning to the up to now that what we have studied, like what I have presented here. So archaeology is the study of the ancient and recent human past through material remains. The anthropology is the systematic study of humanity with the goal of understanding our evolutionary process or origins. Heritage is the full range of our inherited traditions, monuments, objects, and culture. The museum as an institution tells the story of man, the world over, and how humanity has survived in its environment over the years. So if you look around the museum, definition of a museum, heritage, anthropology, and archaeology, they four terms are really connected each other already through their phrases and through their terms. The principle of archaeology is engagement through the anthropological studies to know the past and the present scenario of the global heritage and humanities that helps the humans to adapt to their world. So this is how two words, past to present, and society, which is the humanities to help humans to adapt the world, they're all connected. And which is my main focus of these presentations, like a connection between the past and the present and about the social relevance. The thematic approaches are the art, architecture literacy, and the control of information. People connected to the environment, religions and ideology, social organizations and social stress, power in leadership, trade. So these are all the narratives or characteristics of thematic approaches of archaeological studies. Now, I say that if you can't go every point, like if any students go to research on a art, architecture, literacy, and the control of the informations, then they will find out some questions, and through the base of their questions, they will do the analysis. So this is one of the sections they can go. Or suppose if any student go to the people connected to the environment, this is the one of the area of the archaeology. They can find out some questions, and then based on the questions, they can start analysis on their project. Such as people connected to the environment, such as they can say, what is about the human ecology? How we can improve relations between the environment and the human. so that we can reduce the problem of the climate change. So one of the seminars at the University of Alberta a few years ago, one of the lecturer from the United Kingdom, he came and he said that climate change can't be reduced because now it's a re-engineering process. That means it's an automatic. Whatever the time we watched to reduce, this time is passed away. We can't do anything else anymore. However, this is controversial, but we can try our best, and we can be always positive to reduce our global burning problems. So these are some points and the narratives of each and every areas of the archaeological studies. It's up to you what kind of features or what kind of area or sections that you choose, and you start your research. The connecting to the present, exploring the materialism in the past for the intention of understanding the humankind and crafts it at present at the same time. The social relevance, which is the social issues of the past, which is relevant in the present civilizations and the people societies. So these are some connection between the past and present. And the pedagogical methods are the case studies, technology, project-based learning. So this is the summarized topic that I have discussed about, and I hope you understand. Or if you want my full paper, I can give you my full paper as well. I have that full paper. Now the conclusions. The future question is how heritage and museum studies can be more illustrated among students, educators, and within the world of education, through which they can realize easily the connections between the past and present archaeological scenario. The answer to the question is connected to how the curriculum relates with the past that has a connection with the present. How much the level of humanity can be added to the introductory of archaeology course for the understanding of better humanity and to understand who we are and how we get here. So that means the course of humanity, humanism, and the relation between the past and present are two important areas of the archaeological sector that each and every student have to learn it, how to learn those processes. The thematic approach, again I say, which is a thematic approach? So is a way of teaching and learning whereby many areas of the curriculum are connected and integrated within a theme. So this is the definition of a thematic approach. Is another way for the illustration of the course for its fruitful nature among students, so that the students can go through various topics or various streams or various areas such as experiment, such as thinking, such as analysis, through various mediums, through using the computer mediums, using the classroom mediums, whatever they want. So this is how the thematic approaches is, and they can find out a fruitful solutions of their final projects. The thematic method helps students to know the global concept such as hunger, water, populations, climate change, cultural differences, literacy, community development, etc. So these are the global concepts they can know through the research of the archaeological area. So those concepts will help to focus on things that will be relevant to their future. So it is not only the present, what will be in the future they are and they wish to be or they would like to face, they can indicate. Sorry. Therefore, one of the best archaeologists, Michael Wright, the most significant problem with education today is the problem of significance itself. So this is again some challenges of the archaeological course. So the student our most important critics are the struggling to find meaning and significance in their education. It's really because nowadays the students go to the university to get a good grade, and how quickly they can pass their course and then get out of the university, do their job like professionals or something like that. How many students tell me that I really go for university for for innovative educations or for a lifelong educations? It's very rare. So this is one of the problem. So as a result, that students are getting more and more impatient, because if you don't have a patient, especially on those courses like archaeological studies or English studies or linguistics, then definitely you can't learn anything. It's needed a patient. So this is one of the challenge. These are the challenges that we are facing in our educational institutes. Now, students are taking archaeology courses to pass the course and graduate. For them, education is less valuable due to many confusing concepts. Confusing concept means after your education, are you really getting a job? This is one of the problems. It's not only in India or in Asian countries, it's also in the North America. And now, due to the pandemic, it will be more and more problematic to getting a job. So, and this is really, really realistic. So in this context and situations, why students will think that education is the best way to go through and to get a job right away. So such as they cannot really linkages between the past and the present. They can't because they don't understand. And for understanding between the past and present, you need a time and patience. So if you're impatient or not really timely manner, then definitely you will face some problem, difficulties. Like I say, my example, like soil science, experiment of soils or something like that. So it was very difficult to find out the layers of the soils or something. So therefore, it is the instructor's duty to set up a think tank inside the student. That heritage is a tangible part of their life, which can become a powerful force in social, cultural, and political life. So now it is our responsibility to find out the solution, to find out some fruitful things that can be interested for student and they can be more attracted. How much this is kind of to make the heritage a tangible part of the life, like very important or something very attractive in archaeological studies, something like a reward system, something like that, which can become a powerful force in social, cultural, and political life. So this is the references that I have when I made my paper that I follow. Those are references. And that was the most relevant reference that I used, and I wrote from the University Press of Florida about the archaeological process, like pedagogy and practice in heritage studies. I think I have done, and thank you so much. If you have any question, you can tell me. Hello.
Hello. Please, any questions?
Yes, so if any questions from anybody, I have done my topic. Are you listening to me?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So thank you very much. It's done. The presentation I have finished. So if you have any questions, you can tell me. Or thank you so much to everybody.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Thanks to you for delivering a thought-provoking and informative lecture in the faculty development program.
Thank you so much.
I have no doubt that international webinar would not have been the successful without your presence. I am thankful to you for the delivering a lecture on archaeology, teaching, and social relevance connection. Sir, please keep in touch and visit us whenever you are in this part of country and honor us. Thanking you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everybody, for a patient and listen to me for more than an hour. And thank you to all the audience and my sisters and friends and the principals of the college, the professors and associates and all organizers. Thank you. Thank you very much for the great opportunity.
Okay.
If you need the full paper, I have that full paper I can send to anyone. I have no problem for that.
We would appreciate that, sir, because it is really going to take some time to seep in whatever you've told. So I guess we cannot.
Yes, that's why. Yes, so that's why I say, it will take, like, if you want to get a full paper, that maybe you can understand, because it's a long things, like an hour and a half, and but still, it was, I try my best for a brief expression.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next session's chief guest, Dr. Sreyashi Rao Chaudhary. Presently serving as Assistant Professor, Department of History, Mahitosh Nanda Mahavidyalay, West Bengal, and guest lecturer, Department of Archaeology, University of Calcutta. Indian sculpture, iconography, architecture, and painting. These are the area of specialization of Dr. Sreyashi Rao Chaudhary. She complete a case study of Amravati art in the context of Andhra Archaeology from Department of AISC, University of Calcutta. Then various seminars, workshops, conferences, attended and presented papers in various seminars, conferences, and workshops, state level, national level, and international levels, delivering a guest lectures in Adhir Chakrabarty Memorial Lectures in 240, then delivering a guest lecture and resource person in orientation program for senior secondary teachers, Ministry of Cultures, various publications, authors, over 24 articles and research papers in books, journals, and conferences proceedings, various Indrani Rai Memorial Prize from Paschim Banga Itihas Samsad, and national scholarships in Kathak from CCRT, Ministry of Culture, Government of India. I humble request to Dr. Sreyashi Rao Chaudhary give lectures or start our lecture. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for such a generous introduction. Actually, I had sent my PPT to Bhujangji, can you start the presentation? I mean, Bhujangji?
मैम बोगले जी इज नॉट हियर. क्या आपने मेल किया है पीपीटी?
I had sent it to Bhujangji on his WhatsApp.
मैम बोगले जी इज नॉट हियर. Can you resend me on my WhatsApp number? I have put it in chat box.
Okay, just wait for a second.
Or you can mail.
Wait for a second then. I'm rejoining. Okay, just for a second.
Please wait 2 or 5 minutes only.
Yes. Okay. No, I have joined. I've joined.
Okay.
How did you get my presentation?
Okay.
Yes.
I'm presenting it.
Okay.
Ma'am, now on start.
Just wait for a second. Let me get the confirmation from him. Is it okay? You can start the screen sharing. I will start my presentation.
Okay, ma'am. Can now start.
Okay. Thank you so much for this generous introduction. A very good evening to all of you. Before I begin my presentation, I would like to take this opportunity to thank the principal sir and authorities of Sahakar Maharshi Bhau Saheb Santuji Thorat College, Sangramner, and Bhujang Bawadeji, the director of Heritage Foundation, Jalgaon, for giving me this opportunity to present a paper in the FDP program before this August gathering. I also convey my pranam to my gurus. Especially, it gives me great pleasure to say this, that one of my gurus, Shudipa Ray Bandyopadhyay, Professor Shudipa Ray Bandyopadhyay, she is present here. So, my pranam to her. That today, the topic of my presentation today, my topic of presentation is exploring art
Screen is not
heritage of...
visible. Your presentation is not visible.
I haven't started actually.
Okay, then it's
Bhujangji, I don't know actually his name. I had a talk with Bhujangji only.
Yes, ma'am. I am trying to present it. Because of it is not a PPT. I am converting it to PPT. Just wait 2 minutes.
Okay. So today, my topic of presentation is exploring art heritage of ancient India. In fact, all the works of art, movable, immovable, tangible, intangible, which have a recognized artistic value or a particular historical importance, forms a part of the cultural heritage. The term cultural heritage encompasses several categories of heritage, several categories of cultural heritage, and among them, first is the tangible cultural heritage. There, it can be subdivided into movable cultural heritage comprising painting, sculpture, iconography, manuscript coins, etc. Immovable cultural heritage, the monuments, archaeological sites, so on. Then we also have underwater cultural heritage in the form of shipwrecks, underwater ruins. And next we have the intangible cultural heritage in the form of oral tradition, performing arts, rituals, etc. Beside this, we also have the natural heritage, the natural sites with cultural aspects. And then we have heritage in the event of armed conflict. In keeping with the topic of my presentation, of my today's presentation, I will mainly deal with the tangible cultural heritage. Now I'm just giving a little pause. Just let me see what, is it okay now? Because from now on I will just go directly to the presentation. Okay, now it's okay. I think everybody can see the screen. So let me start now.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much. In my presentation, I would like to take you to the fascinating journey of explorations and reflections of artistic heritage of early India. And in this regard, it can be stated that the art of early India is a valuable record of thoughts and visions of our culture. The ancient art brings before us a view of the world which sees a great harmony in the whole of creation. A vast quantities of art were produced in ancient India, and what survives today is only a small fraction of what was actually created. Yet it consists of such a vast number of monuments and sculptures that it staggers our mind. Now, considering the huge canvas of our discourse, I intend to present today's discourse in several phases of artistic development, which I think will be a proper way to deliver my presentation. And in this regard, I will begin with the Harappan phase. So I will request to go to my first slide. Okay, now all of us know about this great civilization. It was by far the largest civilization of the contemporary world and has bequeathed to us a number of monuments and culture and sculptures of great art historical importance. It was an urban civilization revealing patterns of sophisticated town planning, and all of us know this, that what impresses the observer most is the complete uniformity in the various objects town planning, the vast area encompassing the houses with burnt bricks, pottery vessels, seals, and all these show remarkable uniformity. Please go to the next one. An imposing structure was the great bath and the great granary, to name a few. I have selected some because the scope of my paper is large, so I have just mentioned a few of them. Among the achievements of Harappan civilization, mention may be made of the plastic art, that is the sculptural representations, and the materials used were usually terracotta, stone, bronze. And in this regard, I'm reminded of a saying by great historian S.K. Saraswati, who pointed to certain things regarding the materials and regarding the sculptural representations in its various materials. First, I'll deal with the terracottas, and regarding this, S.K. Saraswati pointed out that the terracottas represented a popular plastic idiom of common people, perhaps following the terracotta traditions of the peasant cultures of Kulli, Jhog, and Mehergarh. The stone and bronze represent an art of higher section, already sophisticated because of their elevated position. First, I'll deal with the terracottas. Please go to the next slide. Yes. Now, coming to the terracottas, which consist a very significant part of the Harappan art, we learn that the technique used is very interesting. They are done entirely by hand, by pinching up or pressing down the clay by thumb and fingers according to the needs of the form. It is called the applique technique, and in such a technique, eyes are made of separate pellets, mouth with small strips applied to the face with deep straight indentation to indicate the lips. The breast and the navel are shown by separate pellets or by cones. Usually, the figures are furnished with elaborate headdress. We see in the figures of the mother goddesses, in the figures of the female and the male figurines, which I have shown it in my slide, this technique can be very well understood. And we see that the figures are elaborately jeweled, wearing armlets, bangles, neck collars, earrings, wearing short girdle around the waist, etc. And they show, and the figures represent various postures, seated, standing, nursing mother, kneeling dough, etc. So we find that there is a variety of poses. In comparison to the female figurines, the male figurines, the number is less. Please go to the next one. Now, in the Harappan repertoire, we find that huge amount of terracotta animal figurines were made in a naturalistic way. We find great naturalistic modeling in these figures. Lots and lots of animals were sculpted: bulls, monkeys, rams, goats, rhinoceros, elephants, buffaloes, what's not, birds, fishes. And if we analyze them, we can say that it carries forward the tradition witnessed in the cultures in Kulli, Jhop, Mehergarh. Apart from the animal figurines, we also see that a number of terracotta objects have also come down to us. Please go to the next one, next slide. And there we see that toys were made. Animals with movable heads that waggle away the sting. The first place which I've shown in this slide. Toy animals on wheels, box-like chariot, toy cars, all these are there. Bird chariot. These are found from the different archaeological sites of the Harappan civilization. Moving on to the stone and the bronze category. Please go to the next one. Next slide, please. Yes. We can see that stone and bronze represent remarkable pieces of sculpture. As artistic achievements, they stand out from the terracotta figurines and appear to imply a different plastic expression. Now, here also we find many representations. I will mention some outstanding specimens in this category. Now, first is the male torso in Redstone. Here we can see that the head and the hands are missing and the legs are missing from the thighs. It is believed that the heads and hands were possibly made separately and fitted through socket holes. The subtle curves, the sensitive rendering of the volume is impressive in this work of art. So, we can appreciate this piece of art. Please go to the next one. This is the figure, dancing figure executed in dark grey slate. Here also we find that the heads and the hands are missing and the legs are broken away. The pose suggests one of rhythmic dance, not violent, but graceful and poised. Next slide, please. Now, this is well known to all of us. This is the bronze girls, bronze young girls. Some have mentioned it as the bronze dancing girl from Mohenjo-daro. It shows slender physiognomy. And the right hand is placed on the hip in half-impudent posture, as Sir John Marshall has pointed out. She is elaborately bejeweled, and according to Stuart Piggott, it is a sophisticated version of the female type known in the rough schematic pottery figurines of Kulli culture. Next one, next slide please. Next is again a very well-known one, that is a steatite piece representing the head and the bust of a male figure draped in an elaborate shawl-like garment passing round the left shoulder, leaving the right shoulder bare. The shawl has repetitive trefoil design. The shawl, the design, the three-leafed design, that is the trefoil design. Scholars recognize an attitude of concentration in the downward glance of the eyes, and some have identified it as the freeskin. Apart from that, we also find that good number of examples of alabaster figures, limestone figures, detached heads, all these are found. Please go to the next one. In metals, I have already shown you about the bronze dance figures. Apart from that, there are other figures also in metal. Here I'll show certain animal figures. And here also we find that craftsmanship is great. We see toy carts and we see individual animal figures. The bull, you will find that there are wheels. So it is a toy that we can understand. Moving on to the next slide, please. Next slide, please. There we find that now we come to the next important category, that is the seal. Seal represent a very important category of Harappan art heritage. Usually they are made in steatite, metal. We find huge bronze. Bronze is a very important metal in which these are made. We find that a lot of animal figures have been sculpted. They are in profile. Most they are in profile. We find unicorn, humped bull, buffalo, bison, all showing noble dignity of the animal form. There is linear stylization of trees also. There are geometric patterns also. Another very important seal is the Pashupati Seal, the three-faced male god seated in the posture of a yogi, which Marshall pointed out to be the prototype of Lord Shiva. And Stella Crumrish notices a peculiar association of trees with human forms, which became very important in later art repertoires. I have only shown you a microscopic minority, since, as I told you, my scope of presentation contains a wide canvas. From the art specimens, it can be suggested that the Harappan art may be said to have established a conception of art forms, the fundamentals of which persisted in the later period. Now, I will move on to the next phase, that is the Mauryan Phase, which is again a very important phase. Now, in the Mauryan period, we find that the remains of Mauryan art include the remains of the royal palace of Patliputra, the remains of the stupas, the monolithic railing at Sharnard, the excavated Chaitya halls in the Barabar Nagarjuni group of hills, the non-edict bearing pillars with their capital, the front half of an elephant curved out and round from the rock at Dholi in Orissa, to name a few. Now, considering the features, we can point out that this art was court art. The finest example of the genre are the freestanding pillars dedicated to commemorate important events in the life of Buddhism. This art is very unique for its monumentality, both in conception, execution, refinement, and finish. Now, Mauryan art is characterized by a polish, which is known as the Mauryan polish. Now, as you can see that the first architectural specimen is that of the remains of palace at Patliputra. It was excavated at Humrahar by American archaeologist A. Spooner, where he discovered the hypostyle, the 80-pillared hall. It is a very important specimen of the Mauryan art. Please go on to the next one. Next slide, please. Yes. We find that in Mauryan period, a number of stupas were constructed. It is known that Ashoka played a very significant role in this. He commissioned many stupas, about 84,000 stupas. However, this number can be an exaggeration. Shachi was a very important one. Here I am not showing it. In the next phase I'll show it. Dhamek, then in Deor Kothar, these are some very important examples. Vihara was also a very important one. And we find that in the Barabar Nagajimi group of hills, it was in full flow. Now, as I told you that in Mauryan art, the freestanding pillars was possibly the excellent specimens of this genre. Now, in the slide, you can see that I have shown the different segments of the pillars. The pillars of the Mauryan period were monolithic. They were highly polished, well proportionate, slightly tapering upwards. Broadly speaking, the pillar is divided into 4 sections. The shaft, which was plain and smooth without a base. Then there was the capital, which was gently arch-shaped of a bell-shaped reversed lotus called the Persepolitan lotus. Then above this bell was surmounted by an abacus. An abacus was enshrined by the crowning animal. The pillars show progressive development, while the Basar Bathira shows a crude and hesitating starting point. The Sharnard columns represent a finality. For the crowning animals, also a rough chronological sequence can be traced. Many pillars have been found, about 30 in number. Mostly they are broken away. Some very prominent ones I intend to show before you. Please go on to the next one. Next slide, please. Yes. This is the Basar Bathira lion. Next slide, please. The Dholi elephant. This is a very, very important art specimen. And here it exhibits realism. The plastic volume and the feeling for living flesh is present in this specimen. It is a remarkable piece of sculpture of this phase. Please go to the next one. Next slide, please. This is the elephant of the Sankista, and then the Laurian and then the lion. Next slide, please. The Rampurva lion. Next one. Sharnard lion. All of us know about this lion. The Sharnard Quadrupotite lion is highly schematic. Although there is a naturalistic representation of the animal form, in particular showing a muscular development, as you can see from his paw, from his leg, a feeling of stylization cannot be overruled. That we can see in his opened mouth, that in his veins, that is the feeling of stylization. Please go on to the next one. Next slide, please. Yes, this is the Rampurva bull. Now, architectonically, it is less advanced from the lion of the same place, but it is undeniable that the bulls show highly developed form and plastic volume. It illustrates remarkable clarity and perfect realism, which Niharanjan Roy pointed out, considers it to be a legacy of the art of bulls as found in Harappa. Please go to the next one. This is the Lomushorishi cave, and here on the lintel there is a procession of the elephants. And in this piece, we can say that it presupposes the tradition of wood carving, because before this period we find that art was made on wood. So this is a very good example of it. The art of Maurya, as I pointed out, that it was reared up by the will, care and patronage of the court, heavily under the influence of the Mauryan rulers, especially Ashoka, and therefore it reflects the individualistic taste of the rulers. Now in this art, it is undeniable that in some idealistic form and pattern of imperialism, the Mauryas were the borrowers of the Achaemenid style. And Strabo has pointed out to the magnificence of Pataliputra, palace of Pataliputra, and he has compared it with the palace of Ekbatana and Susa. And this statement can be corroborated by the excavation by A. Spooner at Patna. Then the Mauryan pillared hall Okay, that can be said that it is inspired from the Hall of 100 Columns by Darius. The columns also, the freestanding columns, that also have Persian influence in the polish we see than the Persepolitan lotus, but there is a lot of difference. For example, in the Achaemenian column it is fluted, but in the Mauryan columns it is monolithic. Moreover, they represent completely different conceptions. In case of animal figures also, extraneous elements can also be seen in the lions, but the Indianness can be seen in case of the elephant and bull. Another great contribution of the Mauryas was that it was the Mauryas from whom the Indians learned how to carve and chisel on stone. As I told you that before this, art was made on wood, but here we find that stone sculptures were attempted, and in the palace of Pataliputra, there we find that partly it is made in wood, partly it is made in stone. And in one example, in a hall, we find both these are used, which actually shows a transition from wood to stone. Now, after the reign of Ashoka and the beginning of the Shungas, we find that a number of art specimens in the form of yakshas, yakshinis, terracotta figurines have come down to us, and among them, as I said, that there are many yakshas, yakshinis, the Parkham yaksha, Didarganj yakshi, then the yaksha from Mathura, and the yaksha from Patna, then the Lohanigur Tirthankar, all these are important specimens. But regarding the dating, there is some controversy. Now I want to show you the Parkham image. Please go to the next one. Next slide. Next slide, please. Yes, thank you. Now this is the Parkham Yaksha 22 kilometers south of Mathura, and this figure presents a monumental appearance because of its size, frontality, and heaviness of body. Please go to the next one. This is the beautiful Didarganj Yakshi from Patna. Earlier it was dated to 3rd century BC, but now to 2nd or 1st century CE belongs to the Shunga period. As you can see that the Mauryan polish is very striking. It is life-size. The anatomical precision is wonderful. Her enigmatic smile reveals her enchanting beauty. This is a beautiful specimen of art. Now moving on to the next phase, we can say that this next phase was different from the Mauryas. The Mauryas successfully depicted complex three-dimensional form, but in the next period, the sculptures became relief. And hence, this phase can be termed as the early narrative art. Now, here, I know I am addressing an August gathering. All of you know about this, but just one or two about relief and the sculpture in the round. Just in sculpture in the round, we usually say that when it is made completely in three-dimensional form, there is no background, as we have seen in the Mauryas. But here, from now onwards, we see that it is in relief attached to the background. From this phase, art activities accelerated and spread over different regions. We find in Madhya Desha there was Bharut, Shachi, Bihar there was Bodh Gaya, Orissa, Udayagiri, Khandagiri. Maharashtra, we find the Bhaja, in Bhaja, Karle, Pitalkhora. In Andhra, that is moving to south, we find Amaravati, Nagarjuni, Konda, Goli, Pachipulu, Gumadiduru, many sites are there. Karnataka, in Karnataka we find Kanaganahalli. These are some of the very important centers, and they were the religious establishments. Some of the shrines were rock cut, scooped out of rock, and others were stupa. Now, the postmodern reliefs were overwhelmingly narrative, as I told you, in content and in character. Now, due to the time constraint, I will limit myself to few very important sites of this period. So first I'll talk about Bharut. It was the most prolific center of early narrative art. The Bharut, brick stupa, the stone railing, the entrance archways can be placed chronologically to 2nd century BC, that is in the Shunga period. Please go to the next one. The themes reflect the stories of the Jatakas, the themes from Buddha's life, Flora, Fauna, Yakshis, lotus rosette, motifs, lotus rosette motifs, often enclosing heads of men and women, usually represented on the railing medallion and the coping stone. Now, the Bharut repository invariably consists of low and flat reliefs which appear like silhouettes attached to the background. As in the relief, you can see that it is sculpted in very low and flat relief. That is, it is chiseled very less. The objects and the figures are arranged in large and small according to the meaning of the story. That is, telescoping of the events were done. In the relief showing the birth of Buddha, you can see the most important event is most important thing associated with the event is that of Maya Devi's dream, where the elephant is entering her womb. So Maya Devi and the elephant is given most importance. This is the telescoping of event. Next, we find that forms are conceived and presented not in terms of depth but of surface, and what optically should have been presented as partly covered is shown in entirety. As we see in the Bodhi tree worship in the Prasennajit pillars, figures are arranged monotonously in a row, and all the figures are shown in entirety. Please go to the next slide. Though effort towards modeling is made, but in the treatment of hands and the legs, they couldn't do it properly, and that is why the hands and the legs are turned sideways, as we can see in the figure of Kuvera Devata. Two kinds of model shapes are recognized. Likewise, Shirima Devata and Kuvera Naga suffer from rigid frontality. Curves, turns, and flows can be seen in case of Sudarshana Yakshi and the Chulapuka Devata. The vegetal world is also rendered intimately, engrossingly, and luxuriously at Bharut. It, therefore, represents the first organized art activity of the Indian people as a whole, where almost the entire society participated. And this stands in sharp contrast to the highly individualized court art of the Mauryas, because in the Mauryas, I have told you that it was a court art, and whatever was made, that was according to the wish of the Mauryan rulers, the patrons, the elite class. But here we find that the entire society is coming and participating in the art activity, how they are making donations, the donative inscriptions, very well points out to this feature. Bodh Gaya was also an important
आई थिंक मैम लेफ्ट हो गए 2 मिनट वेट कीजिए
Can you go to the next slide? Hello, am I audible? Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
thank you so
Yes,
much.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am. You are
Thank you so
audible.
much. Actually, what happened, there were some network issues. That is why I got disconnected and there was problem in the audio also. Sorry for
Yes,
that.
ma'am. Narrate.
Mm. So after Bharut, in Bodh Gaya, we see that Bodh Gaya is a step forward from Bharut. It is also assignable to first half of first century BC. The carvings of Bodh Gaya railings are in the Bharut style, but it is much more advanced in case of technique and plastic effects. Now Shachi. This is, all of us know that Shachi is famous for its great stupa. It was originally commissioned by Ashoka, then it was a brick stupa. It was encased by stone by the Shungas. Shungas commissioned the second and the third stupas, and then the Shatavahanas added the Toranas and other embellishments of this religious establishment. Please move to the next one. Next slide, please. Yes. Now the bas reliefs on the stupas of Shachi provide more than anything else an illuminating comment on the Indian life. It is, especially in the earlier specimens, we find that it is worked in low and flat relief, but slowly we find that the artistic idiom developed. And coming to the theme, we see that the themes illustrate the episodes of the life of Buddha, the Jataka Tales, the incidents that enlivened the contemporary history. The Jataka Tales, as you can see, I have given you certain specimens of the Jataka stories which were illustrated in Stupa 1 of Shachi. Next slide, please. And the Shachi repertoire also illustrates the life stories of Buddha, and here we find that in the plate there is the picture of worship of Dharmachakra, and Dharmachakra stands for the first sermon of Buddha, which he gave in the Deer Park, where he propounded the Dharmachakra, and then the worship of Stupa. You know, the Stupa represented the Mahaparinirvana of Buddha, then his descent from the Trimsha heaven. And another thing which I wanted to see that in this phase we find that symbolic representation of the master is made. In Bharat Bodh also we find the same thing. Symbolic representation of the master is seen. So this is about the theme. Next slide, please. Yes, thank you. Now here also we find that human, animal figures, these are endowed with new form and bearing. It is no longer constituted of different parts, but are joined together as integrated and harmonious whole. Please move on to the next slide. Yes, in the figure of the bracket Yakshi, you can very well understand how human form developed, how the swaying rhythm, how she is gracefully presented. So all these things can be very well seen here. Flora and fauna. A rich world of flora and fauna finds naturalistic expression in the hands of the Shachi artist. I've given the picture of the Purna Kalasha, that is the overflowing vase which represents the abundance of life. Apart from that, we also see many art specimens which show the vegetal world in its luxurious form. There are certain foreign influence also, but they have been fused in this form to a great extent. Please move on to the next slide. Now, another very interesting thing which I would like to point over here regarding the art heritage of Shachi, that is in the door frame also, that the Toranas, we find the reliefs are beautifully sculpted. And in this regard, I would like to point out that famous art historian Niharanjan Roy, he stated that in this art there is a frank attempt at progressive realization of what had originally been a two-dimensional form of Charanachitra or scroll painting in terms of relief on scroll. That is, if you see the Torana very carefully, then you can find that on the side of the Torana, that is, let me just explain this to you. It will be easy for you to understand. First, let me say what is Charanachitra scroll painting. That is in Patachitra, which was present in early India, and this form continued in later period also. We find the scroll painting, the scrolls were opened, and the story was delineated. Now, Niharanjan Rai pointed out that this form was attempted at stone in the Toranas of the stupa at Shati. And here, as I told you, that on the sides, on the Torana, there are the two outposts, and then the three portions are there. On the corner, there is the coiled portion, and that is what Niharanjan Roy said, that scroll painting, scroll on stone. So this is a significant aspect which I wanted to show. So, saying all these, it can be pointed out that in this phase, it can be said that certain essential qualities of the Indian plastic art was laid down in this phase. So, this is again a very significant period where we find the art heritage of India is vibrating and pulsating with all its grandeur. Now I would like to take you to southern India. And here I will talk about Andhra, which is again a very important place which has bequeathed to us a lot of art specimens. Ancient Andhra witnessed, please move to the next slide. Ancient Andhra witnessed a phenomenal growth in Buddhist art and architecture in the centuries immediately preceding and following the Christian era. Coastal Andhra became the hub of this culture, and it was studded with a large number of Buddhist establishments like Amaravati, Bhattipulu, Nagarjunikonda, Goli, Gurivara, Khantashala, Garikaparu, Jagyapeta, Ramireddipelli, Aluru, Shalihundam, so many places. We find huge number of places were there. They bear evidence of creative activity impulsed by the Buddhists. And among the early centers of Andhra, Amaravati, ancient Dhandakataka, took a leading role. In fact, the whole group of art centers singularly designated by the term Amaravati School of Art shows that Amaravati might have been the center of original experiment. We find that the art of this phase chronologically synchronized with that of Bharut and Shati, and then it continued to later phases also. In the first 2 centuries of the Christian era, when Deccan was under the prosperous Shatavahana rule, that we have the mature phase of art blossoming in these centers. Please move to the next one. Next slide, please. The earliest specimens of sculptural art are hailed from Jagyapeta and Amaravati, and they comprised of a number of carved marble slabs of stupas and railings. The Jagyapeta, if you see the relief of Jagyapeta, It is sculpted in very low and flat relief. It appears to be outlined, which detaches the surface. Okay, so it is very low and flat. It is extremely low and flat. And the carvings at Jagyapeta seem to have been attached to the surface almost like the linear sketches. The human forms are tall and slender. Early Amaravati reliefs, however, are deeper cut than that of Jagyapeta, but they are little tough, but they are destined to be transported in the most pliable and most voluptuous of forms that Amaravati art attained in the phase of the Shatavahanas, approximately in the second half of 1st century CE, and this is called the high period of the Amaravati art. Just beside Jagyapeta, the relief which shows the birth of Buddha, there you can see how developed was relief carving at Amaravati. With human figures becoming the pivot of this art, in this school of art we find that scenes after scenes are teamed with human figures. So human figures became the pivot of this art, and nature seen in all its exuberance in the early phase recedes to the background. It is very pliable, and movements in the final outburst turned into circular parabolic curves. Please move to the next slide. Yes. In this slide you can see the worship of Buddha Pada. In this relief, you can clearly understand the pliability in the figure. Amaravati represents the most pliable form of art heritage of ancient India. The figures are becoming so pliable, there is so much swaying rhythm, it is becoming so much graceful, so much pliable, that it is becoming rounded in movement, which Stella Kabrish calls it the parabolic curve. Circular parabolic curve. The subject is, as I have already mentioned, Buddhist stories, Jataka Tales, all these things are there, and the subject matter is delineated in great detail. Please move to the next one. Niranjan Roy has opined that it is frankly naturalistic and even sensuous. If you see the female figures, we can see this, that it is very sensuous, but the sensuousness was more refined and restrained in Amaravati. The powerful emotions of human heart were conveyed. Youthful figures were delineated with a lot of care. Gunners were also there, and therefore Kumaraswamy has rightly pointed out that it is the most voluptuous and most delicate flower of Indian sculpture. Please move to the next slide. Now, I move on to the next important center, that is Kanaganahalli in Karnataka. It is in the Gulbarga district, Chitapur Gulbarga district, and it was another a very important Buddhist center from 1st century BC to 3rd century CE, and unveiled rich wealth of stupa complex, which were embellished with sculptures of superb craftsmanship. Here too we find themes related to Buddha's life stories, Jataka Tales. And another interesting thing is that the Kanaganahalli Mahastupa is a veritable gallery of eminent rulers, like Ashoka, the Shatavahana rulers, all these. They have been immortalized by depicting them on stone. The portrait sculpture of the rulers are very important, and a very important find is the Ashoka sculpture, which which are given in this slide. So this is also a very important center. Please next slide please. Now moving on, let me go to the Mathura School of Art. Mathura was an important art center right from the Shunga period. But the major corpora of Mathura work belong to the Kushana period and the later period. Mathura was not a single site, but rather a vast complex focusing around the modern town of Mathura and surrounding it. One of the famous examples of this school of art is the Vik Shubala Bodhisattva. This image is found in Sharnard and it reflected the stylistic modes present in the Mathura region. That is, Mathura school is characterized by the fleshy body, the hefty physique, the shaven head. All these are found in this culture. Apart from this, we also find many examples of Buddha, Bodhisattva. We find in those specimens, right arm possibly shows the Abhaya Mudra. This was also possibly the figure, though the hand is missing, but the hand was found, the fragment of it was found from the side, just beside the figure. So from that, scholars have pointed out that this figure also demonstrated the Abhaya Mudra, and Susan Huntington has mentioned that the Abhaya Mudra became a very important mudra from this time onwards. In this slide, you will find that I have given another figure. That is a seated figure from Kachra in the Mathura complex. It was dedicated by a Moha Asya Buddhist nun, where it is mentioned that it is dedicated for the welfare and happiness of all the sentient beings. Buddha here sits on Simhasana and his hand is Abhaya Mudra. Behind his head is a large halo with scalloped edges representing flames of light. This is again a very important feature of the Mathura School of Art, that is the scalloped edges. Along with it, we find that there is a precise rendering of the peepal tree. Flanking the seated Buddha are two standing Bodhisattvas. Vidyadharas also fly above. Another seated Buddha also comes down to us from Ahikshatra. It belongs to the Mathura School of Art. Then several reliefs of Buddha depicting life scenes have also come down to us. Certain specific Bodhisattvas, please move to the next slide. Bodhisattvas have also been discovered like Padmapani, Vajrapani, Maitreya. In Mathura, we find that Mathura was the eastern capital of the Kushanas, and the Kushanas had their dynastic shrine at Math. We find that some sculptures are discovered which show the depiction of the rulers. All of us know about the headless statue of Kanishka. Since it is a very common figure, that is why I didn't give it. I purposely omitted it in my slide, in my PPT. But it belongs to the Mathura School of Art. In the figure of Kanishka, all of us know that he stands in frontal position holding a sword and a club, wears the Central Asian padded boot and a tunic, and there is an inscription which marks his identity. It is mentioned that he is son of God, Devaputra. Then there is the figure of Vema Kotsu. Please move to the next slide. Now, Buddhisha railing. This is also a very important specimen of the Mathura art heritage. Buddhisha railing comes from a stupa in Bhutisha near Mathura. One section bears the representation of voluptuous women in casual poses standing upon dwarf-like figures, while amorous couples dally in the balconies above. On the reverse are Jataka stories. Women look like yakshis and riksha devata. This is a very, very important specimen, and Mathura school represents voluptuosity. It represents voluptuous figures, and this specimen clearly shows this feature. Bacchanalian seals were also depicted. As I told you that the Mathura period, those started from the Shunga phase, but if I use the terminology of Rostow, the takeoff took place from the Kushan phase, and then it went to the later phases. We can say that since the patrons were Kushanas, foreign influence also came, and Bacchanalian scenes were depicted. It was depicted in Mathura school as well as in Gandhara. Along with the Buddhist images, we find Brahmanical and Jaina images were also found, like the Kartika image from Kankali Tila. Then we have the, please next slide, the next slide please, the Surya image, Jaina Tirthankara image, all these are found. Now, I move on to Gandhara. Next slide. Now, Gandhara was a massive art complex, and it consists of a number of centers. Some of them were Jolian, Jalalabad, Loria, Tongai, Hadda, Peshawar, Texila. 1st and 3rd century CE was the peak period, and it continued up to 6th, 7th century CE. It was a hybrid style. The theme was Indian, the style was foreign. Earlier scholars pointed it to be Greco-Buddhist, laying major emphasis on Hellenism, while later Roman influence was given a lot of importance. Here we find that a number of Buddha and Bodhisattva images are discovered. They wear the Roman toga, they wear mustache, sandal, tunic, boots, which are definitely the external influence. Please, next slide. An outstanding example of this school is the fasting Buddha. Here, Buddha is seen with sunken stomach and projecting ribs, which display the harsh reality of fasting. You know, in Indian art, we always see that Buddha is conceived as a perfect ideal man. But in Gandhara, he is projected in this fashion because Gandhara art was very naturalistic. So we find that Buddha is represented in this way. The harsh reality of fasting. If you fast for many days, this is what happens to a person. So it is very realistic, and it shows naturalistic depiction. Along with it, we also find that several motives, several themes and motives of external influence have been represented in the Gandharan repertoire, like the figure of Atlantis, which you can see, definitely external. Bacchanalian scenes are also there. Motives like acanthus motifs in the frieze of Vimaran. Please, next slide. Please, yes, this. Then this slide shows the Jamal Guri pillar. Here, Buddha is sculpted amidst the acanthus motifs. Along with it, we find that there are frieze of garland bearers, marine horses. Vajrapani looks like Zeus. In the life stories also, we find external influence. Like in the scene of birth of Buddha, which you can see in the slide. In this panel, Maya Devi appears to be dressed in the Hellenistic style. This is clearly seen here. Next slide, please. We also get a number of Buddha heads. There we find that it shows a different feature from other school of art. Here the locks are long and wavy and or they are made of a number of small schematic spirals which are tied up into a knot on the crown of the head. So this is seen in the head which I have included in my PPT. Then, as I said, that Buddha's life, several stories depicting his life, Jataka Tales, all these are also represented. The enlightenment of Buddha clearly shows this, and the external influence can be unmistakably seen. Therefore, we can say that the history of Gandhara sculpture is one of gradual Indianization which set about in 3rd century CE. And in this regard, I would like to quote Stella Fromrich, who has aptly remarked that the Gandhara art is Indian and colonial from a Hellenistic point of view, and it is Hellenistic and colonial when viewed from India. So it is also a very, very important and very interesting art form and a very significant art form which forms an inseparable component of our Indian heritage. Next we move to the Guptas. And when I thought that I'll do Guptas, I thought that I should also mention about the murals which were constructed during this time. I'm speaking of the Ajanta murals. Ajanta is an epic in murals. It unfolds itself the basic norms of Indian classical painting. The technical assurance and plastic visualization of these paintings show that almost all the essential characteristics of the pictorial tradition has been reached here. It covers a long span. The earliest spans the caves, that is cave number 10-9, spans to 2nd, 1st century BCE. Then cave 1, 16, 17, 475 to 500 CE. Cave 19, 475 to 525 CE. Cave 2, 500 to 550 CE. Now, here we see that the technique of the murals, just one or two, it is executed in tempera on dry plaster. Actually, we see that scholars point out that there are two types of murals: murals in fresco secco and murals in fresco buono. This is probably fresco secco because it is made on dry plaster. Now the theme represents the Jataka Tales, the life of Buddha, and while portraying these, the artist depicted social life in its diverse manifestations. The rich resources of flora and fauna, semi-human, celestial figures in all imaginable movements and moods, inanimate objects were also depicted. However, anthropomorphic forms stole the limelight. Thus, The kings and nobles, sages and beggars, dancers and musicians, hunters and soldiers, lots and lots of figures, princesses and maids, apsharas, kinnaris, nagas, gandharvas fill up the wall surface. Ajanta paintings show pageantry and consciousness that resulted from the material and cultural gains achieved during this phase. The mute physical actions in the early narratives is now supplemented by diverse psychological expressions. Actions, kriya, which we say, along with mood, bhava, sentiment, rasa, are all in full play in the Ajanta murals. Expressions like joy, sorrow, greed, love, compassion, all are communicated beautifully in the scenes on the walls of the Ajanta painting. Now the Gupta period also witnessed some innovations in some innovations in architecture. During 4th century, or rather more in the 5th century CE, the Gupta temple style emerged and percolated throughout the Indian subcontinent. This Gupta art is very extensive. Please move to the next slide. Here we find that in the Gupta period constitutes an age of experiment in temple forms and types. 5 well-defined types developed. The circular temple with shallow rectangular projections at 4 cardinal faces, which we see in Mauryan Phase, Rajgir, Bihar. The rectangular temple with upside back and barrel vaulted roof above, which we see in Ter, Sholapur, Maharashtra, then Kaputeshwar temple in Chizarla. Then we find the flat-roofed temple with shallow pillared porch in front, which we see in the cave temple number 17 in Shati, Kankali Devi temple at Tigawa, the Vishnu temple at Iran. Then we find the square temple with low and squat shikara, which I have given in the PPT. The Dashavatara temple at Devgarh, the brick temple at Hithargaon. Then the next category is the flat roof temple with covered ambulatory around the sanctum and preceded by a pillared porch. Sometimes we find that there are 2 stories, 1 story rising above the next. The basic feature of these temples is that they are characterized by a cruciform ground plan and curvilinear roof, and among the 5 types, the last 2 are very important, because from the last 2, the Nagara and the Dravida temples evolved. Now, moving on to the sculpture, the Gupta art represents unique representation of iconoclastic art heritage of India. Gupta art is religious, but it is anthropomorphic. The artists depicted divine beings through their version of ideal form. According to S.K. Saraswati, the human figure termed as image is hence the pivot of the Gupta sculpture. They created idealized form of divine being. There is an inner serenity that radiates calm and peacefulness, and this is a development of the intellectual advance which happened during this phase. Mathura was a very important center of Gupta repertoire, and here you can see a number of Buddha figures standing seated. The one which I have mentioned in the PPT shows monumental simplicity, standing Buddha, monumental simplicity, and realism. The realism is very refined over there. We find that he clings to the Sangati and The Sanghati consists of a series of string-like folds. The halo is richly curved with foliages and various motifs. We also find the number of Jaina Tirthankaras also. Sharnard was also a very important center of Gupta art. Compared to Mathura, the Sharnard Buddhas are much more refined. They do away with the stringed drapery and they opt to reveal the smoothness of the body. In the seated Buddha figure, there is a genuine balance between the refined simplicity and the decorative richness. Here we can see, if we analyze this figure carefully, we can say that an almost triangular form in yogic posture is set against a rectangular throne and a circular halo. As I said that this art was very extensive. In MP, Udaygiri was a very important center in central India, and please go to the next slide. And there we find that a colossal image of Varaha, an incarnation of Vishnu, is sculpted. He is depicted rescuing Mother Earth from the primeval water. Along with it, the Gupta style continued in 6th, 7th century, and the artists took up this style in their respective regions. And there were regional variations also. The beautiful figure of young Ganga from Desnagar illustrates this. Please, next slide. In this, the Gandhara style lingered and the traits were mixed with the Gupta style. A mix is evident in the Buddhist terracotta figure of Buddha's head from Devni Modi. Now in Deccan also, we find that this style percolated, and Ajanta reliefs. In the reliefs of Ajanta, we find that plastic treatment is sensitive and there is an importance given to height, which creates sturdy figures. In Karle also we find the same sturdiness. In Kanheri, the pose becomes further stiff. After 8th century onwards, there was a conscious emphasis on the regional style, flourishing in various centers of East, like in Paharpur. Then we find the Palashena School of Art. In North, we find Kashmir. In Central India, Khajuraho. In South, we find so many sites, Aihole, Badami, Mahabalipuram, Kanchipuram, Ellora, Elephant, and so on. Now, it marks the beginning of the early medieval phase in the art tradition of India, which actually stands out of our purview of today's presentation. Thus, we have come to the end of our fascinating journey of exploring the art heritage of early India. At this juncture, I would like to quote an epic line of Von Ogden Voss from his, where he says, from his work actually, the work is Art and Religion, and there he says, art is not something detached from life. It makes life and is made by it. We see this saying in full play in Indian art heritage, as art was never detached from culture and hence life. It made culture and was made by it. Thus, from the archaic, innocent, artistic beginning at Harappa, it reached its glorious apex during the Guptas, where a perfect balance and harmony was achieved in the stylistic and iconographic elements. The entire visual world was unfolded before our eyes in all its grades and shapes, which provides more than anything else an illuminating comment of our cultural heritage. So, with these words, I end my presentation. Thank you all for your patient hearing.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
So this is all.
Anyone questions? Participants, please.
Actually, the scope was so vast, that is why I have tried to encompass almost all, but in doing so, I think I have given a microscopic minority of the entire art heritage. But I've tried to journey my lecture through the different phases to show the development of the art heritage of ancient India. So I hope there is no question.
Yes, yeah.
So thank you all.
Thank you. I am thankful to you for delivering a lecture on
My pleasure, sir.
explore the art heritage of ancient India and valedictory program. Again, thank you for ma'am. Then I invite Dr. Aruna Vadhule ma'am to express her feedback about the development program.
Okay, sir. Okay. Good evening, everybody. I am Vaghule Aruna.
Good evening, ma'am.
I am Vaghule Aruna in Maharashtra, in district Pune. Faculty development program are very fruitful. मैं ये कहना चाहती हूँ कि सावित्रीबाई फुले पुणे यूनिवर्सिटी पुणे के अंतर्गत अहमदनगर जिले के सह्याद्री महाविद्यालय संगमनेर और जळगाव हेरिटेज फाउंडेशन जळगाव महाराष्ट्र इनकी तरफ से ये जो वर्कशॉप नेशनल वर्कशॉप आयोजित किया गया था 7 जुलाई से लेके 13 जुलाई तक आज तक ये 7 days very good very गेस्ट लेक्चर्स आर वेरी गुड जैसे कि जो एचओडी थे डायरेक्टर थे कंजर्वेशन थे आर्किटेक्चर्स थे और सभी ने बहुत अच्छा हमें ये एंशिएंट पीरियड से मॉडर्न इंडिया तक जैसे कि अश्मयुगीन नवाश्मयुगीन मौर्य काल से लेके अभी तक अभी का जो सेशन हुआ वो बहुत बढ़िया हो गया उसी से लेके मुगल कालखंड का जो कुतुब मीनार ताजमहल और दौलताबाद किला इन सभी के हेरिटेज की इंफॉर्मेशन वेरी अच्छी बताई दी है और ये सब जो लेक्चरर थे वो सभी के डॉक्टर गुप्ता लंदन से बोबड़े सर जळगाव महाराष्ट्र से दुबे मध्य प्रदेश से डॉक्टर रीना आसाम से डॉक्टर अनीता उत्तर प्रदेश से सिंधु जगन्नाथ कर्नाटका से डॉक्टर दिलीप बलसेकर मुंबई महाराष्ट्र से मिस्टर पटेल गुजरात से डॉक्टर बिंदा परांजपे मैडम उत्तर प्रदेश से प्रोफेसर संजय ग्वालियर मध्य प्रदेश से डॉक्टर कुंटे पूना से डॉक्टर श्रद्धा कुंभोजकर मैडम सावित्रीबाई फुले पुणे यूनिवर्सिटी पूना के अनेक महाराष्ट्र के आनंद मुजुमदार कनाडा के डॉक्टर चौधरी मैडम कलकत्ता के ये सभी ये इंडिया महाराष्ट्र और बाहर से ही बहुत अच्छे स्पीकर्स यहाँ मौजूद किए गए थे और उन्हीं ने डॉक्टर सुधीर तांबे एंशिएंट इंडिया अपॉर्चुनिटीज रिवर वैली कल्चर कंजर्वेशन मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट ग्लोबल फंडामेंटल्स डॉक्यूमेंटेशन गैजेटियर का महत्व डांस इंपॉर्टेंस ऑफ आर्काइव्स और कैन वी चूज आवर हेरिटेज टीचिंग सोशल रिवोल्यूशन और एंशिएंट पीरियड इन सभी सब्जेक्ट के हर लेक्चरर अपने अपने सब्जेक्ट में बहुत अच्छी तरीके से उन्होंने हमें ये सब इंफॉर्मेशन दिए और ये इंफॉर्मेशन देने की वजह से हमारे जो तज्ञ लेक्चरर्स है एचओडीज है डायरेक्टर्स है और उन्होंने जो हमें बताया है ये सभी हिस्ट्री का जो आत्मा है वो सब कहाँ मिलता है? वो सब आर्काइव्स में। और आर्काइव्स में गए तो मिडिवल से लेके एंशिएंट से लेके अभी मॉडर्न तक सभी के सभी जो संशोधक है, जो अभ्यासक है, जो विद्वान है, उन्होंने जो जो कुछ काम किया है वो सभी का तहे दिल से मैं शुक्रिया अदा करती हूँ कि जो बहुत सारी इम्पोर्टेंस जो इंफॉर्मेशन थी वो 7 दिन में हमें पूरा जग में यानी कहीं घुमा के लाया है। और बोबड़े सर और जलगांव के ये डायरेक्टर है इन्होंने, और हमारे पुणे के मुझे संगमनेर कॉलेज के डॉक्टर ढोने सर, डॉक्टर राजदेव सर और उनकी सब टीम, ये सब जो चौकट है, ये चौकट ने हमें बहुत अच्छे तरीके से अच्छी ये सुवर्ण संधि हमें मिला के दी है कि जिसकी वजह से हम ये सब अच्छे तरीके से आर्काइव्स का महत्व क्या है, डांस क्या है, गायन क्या है, रिवर क्या है, ये सभी का जो इम्पोर्टेंस हमारे हिस्ट्री में है, और इसके वजह से हम कोई भी कैसा भी इतिहास पढ़ नहीं सकते, पढ़ा जा नहीं सकता। ऐसा हमें बहुत अच्छा या फैकल्टी डेवलपमेंट प्रोग्राम में सही तरीके से हिस्ट्री का महत्व, हिस्ट्री क्या है, हिस्ट्री कैसी लिखी जाती है, हिस्ट्री का मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट्स कैसे है, इस सभी बारे में हमें बहुत अच्छी इंफॉर्मेशन हमें जो मिली है, इसका हम पढ़ने के लिए, हमारे विद्यार्थियों के लिए, संशोधक के लिए, नए विचारवंत निर्माण होने के लिए ये सब इंफॉर्मेशन हमें बहुत अच्छी तरीके से हमें आज ज्ञात थी और आज अभी इन 7 दिनों में अच्छी तरीके से मालूम हो गए और हम हमारे स्टूडेंट को ये दे सकते हैं। इतना अच्छा हमको ये मौका ये कोविड के काल में मिला है। तो मैं आप सभी को तहे दिल से शुक्रिया अदा करती हूँ। और ये संधि हमें जिन्होंने उपलब्ध कर दी है, ढोने सर, डॉक्टर राजदेव सर, डॉक्टर डायरेक्टर बोबड़े सर और इन सबके टीम ने हमें ये बहुत अच्छी इंफॉर्मेशन दी है। और इससे हमें प्रिंसिपल हो, एचओडी हो, डायरेक्टर हो, ऑर्गेनाइजर हो, पार्टिसिपेंट्स हो और ऑल गेस्ट लेक्चरर्स हो, और सभी ने हमें जो पीपीटी जो बताई है वो बहुत अच्छी, वेरी नाइस टॉपिक चूज, वेरी नाइस पीपीटी बनाई है। और ये जो सब इंफॉर्मेशन हमें यूट्यूब के बारे में हम सभी को दे सकते हैं। और इसका मैं बोबड़े सर से भी बोली हूँ कि ये सब जो 7 दिन में जो वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट लेक्चर जो हुए हैं उसका एक अच्छे तरीके से एक अच्छा बुक्स जर्नल्स निकाला तो हर लाइब्रेरी में, हर आर्काइव्स में इतना अच्छा काम ये कोरोना के काल में हम घर में बैठ के हमें इतना अच्छा इंफॉर्मेशन मिली है कि जो प्राचीन काल से लेके ये मॉडर्न काल तक, ये डॉक्टर श्रद्धा कुंभोजकर मैडम ने जो बताया है हीरो सतीश याद तक, यानी कि एंशिएंट पीरियड से लेके मॉडर्न इंडिया तक। और ये जलगांव के जो हमारे बोबड़े सर है, ये महात्मा गांधी 1 रुपए चांदी का देश हमारा गांधी जी का, गांधी जी के ये फाउंडेशन में हमें ये सब इंफॉर्मेशन मिलेगी और मिलनी चाहिए। इसलिए मैं सभी को यहाँ धन्यवाद देती हूँ, सबका मैं शुक्रिया अदा करती हूँ। ऐसे प्रोग्राम हमेशा होते रहे और सभी मुझे ज्यादा से ज्यादा यहाँ जेंट्स ने तो दिए है लेकिन ज्यादा से ज्यादा लेडीज ने यहाँ फीमेल्स लेक्चरर्स ज्यादा हमें दिखाई दिए और सभी का मैं यहाँ तहे दिल से शुक्रिया अदा करती हूँ। 120 participants are here attend registration first day and then आज तक 99% लोग यहाँ मौजूद है, उनका भी मैं यहाँ तहे दिल से शुक्रिया अदा करती हूँ। मुझे यहाँ बोबड़े सर ने और डॉक्टर राजदेव सर ने मुझे यहाँ बोलने की संधि उपलब्ध कर दी, मैं उनका भी तहे दिल से आभार मानती हूँ। धन्यवाद। जय हिंद, जय महाराष्ट्र। थैंक यू सर।
Thank you, ma'am. Then I invite Libemo Kithan Oka, Nagaland. Sir, please express our feedback.
Am I audible, sir?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Hello? Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes,
Thank you
yes,
so
sir.
much. Yeah, thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to share some of my experience for attending this faculty development program on pedagogy and practices in heritage studies. I think all the participants will join me when I express my thankfulness to the organizers, especially the principal of SMBSP College, Dr. Didi Badil, and the director of Heritage Foundation, Jalgon, Sir Bojang Babode. I found Mr. Bojang a very refined gentleman and very active in his mission, a mission to promote the heritage of India. I'm so grateful to him. I would also like to express a sincere thanks to his colleagues and the faculty members, the supporting staff of SMBSP College also. Well, I'm Mr. Lipen Gitan, a faculty member of the College Woka. I've been teaching history for the last 20 years, and I'm also a convener of the Heritage Committee Woka Village. And during the course of my PhD studies, I have developed 2 heritage in the village. And I've also done archaeological excavation of 4 sites, 4 archaeological sites. And when I consider this faculty development program, it was very helpful to me. Particularly, many aspects of the topic has been covered, like river valley culture of India, traditional knowledge and manuscripts culture, heritage of Indian global perspectives, fundamentals and documentation of heritage sites, dance as an important part of cultural heritage in India, importance of archival materials and past archives in India, heritage of Indian music through the ages, archaeological teaching and social relevance, a connection like Sir Mujumdar has emphasized on thematic approach, and also the topic on explore the art and heritage of ancient India. All the topics are very important to me. So I especially thank the organizer for the success of this program. I would also like to extend a warm greetings on behalf of my colleagues in the college, Mounty College Woka. Woka is one of the headquarters in Nagaland. It is 2 hours journey from Kohima, the capital of Nagaland, Northeast India. As we all know that India is a secular and democratic country with a diverse culture. So I personally felt that it is important to understand the culture of every community. Only then every community, every state and its people will maintain and live in harmony. Understanding and promoting the heritage will definitely pave a way to achieve a congenial atmosphere in the country. So while we focus on academic development and widen up the horizon on heritage studies, we must also focus on the cultures of the different tribes, different communities, different regions in the country. So in brief, I still look forward to attend such a wonderful program vis-a-vis cultural sharing, the sharing of culture among ourselves. I have learned a lot through this program and enriched with a new knowledge. So thank you so much, and God bless everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Dear respected all scholars, your certificates send in your registered email IDs only. Thank to all speakers, organizers.
One minute. सभी पार्टिसिपेंट ने या 7 दिवसीय कार्यशाला में, राष्ट्रीय कार्यशाला में भाग लिया। इसी सभी स्कॉलर को मैं मेरे संस्था, मेरे महाविद्यालय और मेरा डिपार्टमेंट के तहत से सभी को मैं यह धन्यवाद व्यक्त करता हूँ। और यह अपने फीडबैक भरने के बाद आपको अपना सर्टिफिकेट अदा किया जाएगा। धन्यवाद। स्नेहल मैडम।
Yes, sir, yes.